number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls, minus 13, feeling a bit colder in the wind. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Russia seems to be changing strategy, including the attack on civilians trying to flee major cities in Ukraine, like the capital of Kyiv. Here's City News reporter Jamie Pulfer now with the latest.
And it seems Russia is now shifting to more direct attacks on Ukrainian cities. A NATO official says heavier bombardment is a side effect of that pivot. This as explosions rock the capital. Most recently, the central train station in Kyiv, where thousands have been trying to flee the city. Part of a platform has been hit, along with a major gas heating pipeline, and CNN's Alex Marquardt is there.
It really does raise concern about what the Russians may be doing in terms of their targeting in and around Kyiv, specifically whether they may be going after heating. We've also been worried that they might be going after the electricity grid, of course.
Now, that massive Russian convoy remains stalled about 30 kilometers outside the city. Staunch Ukrainian resistance is largely responsible for that. But Russian forces have seized their first major Ukrainian city. It's the port city of Kherson. It's fallen, while another, Mariupol, is surrounded and taking constant shelling. Here's the deputy mayor.
We do not have electricity in whole city. We do not have water supply. We do not have sanitary system, and we do not have heating.
And there are concerns Russia is working to control an entire eastern arc of the country, trying to cut off resupply arteries. Russian and Ukrainian delegations will be meeting shortly. This is for a second round of so-called peace talks today. It's happening near the border with Belarus. Their meeting on Monday didn't really accomplish much. The United Nations now says 1 million refugees have fled Ukraine in the fastest exodus in history. Jamie Pulfer, City News.
City News time, 9:02. A traffic note this hour, 417 eastbound remains closed at Innis. Multiple vehicles involved in a collision around 7:30 this morning. Now, there were some injuries. We don't have any word yet on how serious any of them were. Now, your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Most areas will clear out. Plenty of sunshine, but it's cold. A gusty northwest wind. We've already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about minus 11, drop to minus 21 for the overnight low. The average low is minus 10. Chance of flurries tomorrow, high minus 4. For today, already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, minus 11.
And right now, feeling colder in the wind, it's minus 13 in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls. An emergency meeting of the Ottawa Police Board is going to be held tomorrow. This follows a Solicitor General in Ontario saying that all three public members of the Services Board have resigned. It followed one of them, Robert Sweda, who took part in the downtown COVID mandate protest. Now, the other two members of the public on the board were Daljit Nerman and Bev Johnson. A statement from the Solicitor General says it is important the people of Ottawa have confidence in their police governance, and this will bring fresh perspectives at the board to address recent events. It continues, there will be more from the Solicitor General in the coming days. Now, Councillor Sean Menard tweeted the announcement of the board meeting, which says it will be in camera to deal with personnel matters. We're still waiting for the provincial decision to drop the mask mandate, but we do now have a date in Quebec. Health officials say most mask rules, with the exception of public transit, will be rescinded by mid-April. Majority of health measures, including the vaccine passport and capacity limits on places like restaurants, bars, and large venues in Quebec, will be gone a week from this Saturday. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Plus 12 on Sunday? I'm up for that. That would be a record high. If we actually get there on Sunday, the record is plus 10 for March 5th. Never mind that it comes with a little bit of freezing rain. Ignore that. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We're so happy when you decide to spend part of the day with us. We are going to cover a lot of ground this morning. Coming up, the latest on the price of gas. New record prices across Ottawa this morning. $1.65 or so a liter for gas this morning. And we are being warned it could only go up from there. Maybe $1.70. as soon as tomorrow. So we'll get the latest on gas prices from Dan McTagg, our gas price guru. He was supposed to join us yesterday, but we had a hard time connecting. This happens from time to time. Dan's phone has been ringing off the hook, as you can well imagine, because there are pesky people like me, media types, in every city in Canada right now. We're all calling Dan, hey, what's the price of gas going to be tomorrow? But we're also... have to talk about Canada's energy policy, don't you think? From more of a macro view, and what the current state of affairs says about the way our federal government here in Ottawa has handled energy policy since it came to power 6 years ago. You know, it's canceled some pipelines, it's nationalized another. The proponents of the Energy East pipeline, they just waved the white flag and surrendered. We're out of here. Because it's just so much opposition, especially in the province of Quebec, where, you know, all the pickup trucks run on fairy dust in Quebec. And not just oil, but natural gas, because we have a lot of natural gas in Canada, too, and we could be selling it all over the world in markets like Europe, where they're finding out in the hardest of ways that it probably wasn't a good idea to rely on Russia for natural gas supplies. You know, here in this country, we're actually having a hard time supplying Canadian natural gas to Canada. You know, StatsCan pointed out not that long ago, it was less than a year ago, major report, that customers in Ontario and Quebec are increasingly getting their natural gas not from Canada, but from the United States, from the Appalachian Basin of the United States. StatsCan says imports of American natural gas into Canada climbed more than 30% in the last 5 years because of fracking and because the Americans built new pipelines. And get into all of this. And the carbon tax, which is supposed to go up in less than a month from now. And on the carbon tax, the Trudeau government doesn't call it a carbon tax. It's not a tax. Taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. So let's call it a price. Yeah, let's go with that. The price on carbon. Carbon. The price on pollution. Yeah. Love that. Don't you love the word games? How carbon tax becomes price on pollution? Diabolical. Anyway, the mayor of Brampton is Patrick Brown, former Ontario PC leader, former Conservative member of Parliament, and he is calling on the federal government to delay that April hike in the carbon tax, saying now is not the time to hit people with even higher energy bills. So, what is Patrick Brown up to? I mean, he is, after all, the mayor of a mid-sized city, and now he's talking about the carbon tax. And in recent months, he was very outspoken in his opposition to Quebec's Bill 21, the secularism bill. He was trying to convince other municipalities to throw some money into the pot to help those challenging that terrible piece of legislation in the courts. He couldn't convince our mayor to do that, but Patrick Brown was leading those calls. So this has led to much speculation that Patrick Brown is not satisfied being the mayor of a southern Ontario city, that he would instead like to take a run at the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, the municipal elections in Ontario this year are scheduled for October 24th. The leadership for the Conservative Party is to be decided September 10th. So you would think you had timing on his side. The question is, does he want in, and can he possibly win? I'll say this. He's surprised me more than once. But Patrick Brown will join me right after the 11 o'clock news here on the Rob Snow Show. And we will also talk about the ambitions of Patrick Brown when we're joined by our panelists for Ontario Politics this week. We always do that right after the 9:30 news on a Thursday morning. Talk about what's happening at Queen's Park this week. It's been all about the price of gas for the most part. That was a hot topic yesterday in the Ontario legislature. Can we listen to a little bit of yesterday's Ontario legislature action, David, on the price of gas?
Now imagine if you're a PSW providing home care and you have to drive to each and every patient in your car, how much that's costing you. Drivers are paying $30 more a month. People can't afford it, Speaker. The Premier said he'd take on the big oil companies. He hasn't done so. He said he would take on overnight gouging. He hasn't done so. The oil companies are flush with money. They have billions of dollars in cash. And the drivers have record bills. So my question to the Premier is, why hasn't he stopped these big oil companies from gouging Ontarian drivers like he promised he would do? Why is he saying no?
To respond, the Premier. I can't believe what I just heard from the other side of the aisle. You know, this is a government on the other side of the aisle, and I'm going to quote the member from Etobicoke Centre. Etobicoke Centre, they wanted an additional 35 cents. The leader wanted the largest carbon tax increase in the world, in the absolute world. It's increased gas prices by 11 cents. And Mr. Speaker, again, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth here. Mr. Speaker, we're putting money back.
All right. Okay, that's good. So you get a sense of it. And there'll be a question period again this morning. But you have the New Democrats. Now they want to regulate the price of gas like they do in Nova Scotia, where you have a government regulator basically sets the price of gas once a week. It's kind of like wage and price controls. Premier Ford, though, promised he would cut the price of gas, and gas prices are at record highs. Now, Ford blames most of this on the Trudeau government here in Ottawa. But, you know, at least the New Democrats, you know, they're onto an issue that people actually care about. I don't know what the leader of the Liberal Party is thinking about these days. I have nothing against Stephen Del Duca personally or anything. He's been on the show many times. Not personal. But some of the things that he seems to be worried about, I just don't think the typical Ontarian of voting age is all that concerned. Like having a fixed date for the budget, or whether acupuncture is regulated or deregulated. These are the big things that are on the Liberal Party's mind. He seems very interested in these issues, but for the life of me, I don't understand it. We have an affordability crisis. Gas, food, housing, pocketbook issues. This Ford government is supposed to be in it for the little guy. Well, the little guy's having a tough time making ends meet right now. Why isn't he hammering away at Ford for that? It's a great mystery to me. On what's happening in Ukraine, Elliot Tepper will be back with his regular feature called The World with Elliot Tepper. That's at 11:30 this morning. Professor Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. We're lucky to have him as a regular contributor. He told David last night, as we were preparing the show for this morning, he told David, the outlook is grim. The outlook is grim. That Vladimir Putin can still unleash all kinds of pain. And there's no reason to think that he wouldn't, just given his history in places like Chechnya and Syria. But he thinks there may be some ways out of this terrible situation. We'll get into that with the professor. And in the middle of the show, there's you and the Talkback Hour. We do that every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock, an hour a day. And we set it aside, and it's just for you and your phone calls and your opinions. 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. And this morning, we're going to get your take, kind of rapid poll style, on the Conservative Party leadership. Okay, we know the rules now. They were released last night, September 10th. All will be decided. So, I mean, it's pretty easy. Who do you like? Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? Some of the names that are out there. Pierre Poilievre, the only declared candidate. Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, again, my guest at 11 o'clock this morning. Peter MacKay, Michael Chong, Leslyn Lewis, and Tasha Carradine. Who do you like? Why do you like them? And who is your second choice? Because it's a Conservative Party leadership with ranked ballots. Second choices are very important. We'll do that right after the 10 o'clock news. The latest on gas prices next with Dan McTagg on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from a 150 square foot space on St. Patrick's Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you know, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got 10 other people working for you, you're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, I mean, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, you know, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, you know, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, you know, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, you know, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing, and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
And 1310 AM.
Dan McTagg back with me, President, Canadians for Affordable Energy. Good morning.
Yes. 56 interviews later. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you. We know you're busy. We know you're busy. For the Ottawa area, what can motorists expect on the price of gas?
Rob, we're seeing a lot of $1.65.9 at the top end. Some gas stations, in fact, a lot of them might be less than that. That's because gas stations control about 7 cents a liter, 7.5 cents, what's called a retail margin. So you might see them as low as $1.58. Anything below that is really below cost selling. So you got to ask yourself, are they selling a lot of beef jerky, or do they have a rich uncle or a friendly bank, or what's the catch? But we're looking tomorrow across the board increase here in Ottawa of at least 7 cents a liter. So that will push us up to the $1.73.9 range, $1.72.9, depending again on the gas station. And of course, it may very well be that we're looking, it's early time because the market doesn't settle till late in the afternoon. We could see a sudden rally, as we've seen in the past little while, more like a panic, where we could see a 3-cent increase. We could be over $1.75 by Saturday, is what I'm saying.
Okay. In April, when the carbon tax goes up, how much more will that add to the price of gas?
So that's 2.21 cents a liter, but you have to add HST, so it brings it to 2.5 cents a liter, which of course then comes very quickly from April Fool's Day until the second week of April, when you have the shift over from winter to summer gasoline. So that's another likely 5 cents a liter. If nothing changes, and I'm hopeful that it does, but we're dealing with a much bigger global risk than anything we've seen. We could be well into the $1.80, maybe even $1.85 range, but that's really far out. I'm trying to focus on what happens this week because, Rob, in 1 week we've gone from $91 a barrel all the way this morning to $1.14. Now it's come down to $1.09, $1.10, which is a good sign, but there's a lot of quick, fast-moving parts here, and putting them together for consumers is not easy, but it does mean that we are, again, in that territory where record prices continues to hit hard on gasoline.
Okay.
Really have to focus on diesel, especially for those of us who think that it's not going to affect them because we don't drive a vehicle or we don't, or we have an electric vehicle or whatever. This is going to hit your food prices in ways that most of us can't possibly imagine.
Yeah, and diesel prices are even higher. Right.
They are, yesterday they rallied 14 cents, so up yesterday for most gas stations and users. 5 cents yesterday, 7 cents today, 14 cents tomorrow, and it looks like at least another 5 cents on Saturday. So those will eventually make their way right back to consumers, whether it's vessels on the high seas or whether it's trains or whether it's transport trucks. Look for those to start to really hit us in places, of course, that all of us have very little in the way of arguing, and that's the price of food.
Sounds like Vancouver could hit $2 by the end of the week. What do you think?
Tomorrow. So I put the prediction out on gaswizard.ca that 200.9, so just under 201 is the new price for Vancouver tomorrow. That, by the way, is a city that has extraordinarily high taxes, the highest in North America. And one of the main features of that tax is the one that no one likes to talk about out there, but I have no choice to introduce it, and that's the clean fuel standard. That's the second carbon tax. BC is the only jurisdiction in Canada that has it. They pay an additional 17 cents a liter. So that's kind of where we're at. Higher taxes are not helping, and as governments look the other way, I could do only the best in telling people what it is and showing up the House of Commons Finance Committee last week, 2 weeks ago, and saying we need maybe to put the brakes on increases in carbon taxes and maybe think about, hey, the federal government's making quite a windfall on the GST applied to energy. Maybe time to go back to what you and I probably talked about 20 years ago, and that was the success in getting at least a GST home heating rebate or something along that line. The federal government's flush with cash as a result of these ill-gotten gains, and maybe time to remit it.
All right. Thank you, Dan McTagg.
Pleasure being here. Thanks, Rob.
Yep. Very busy man, Dan McTagg, President Canadians for Affordable Energy. So, look, David, count yourself lucky, okay?
Oh, yeah? How was that?
You don't live in Vancouver.
There we go.
Not that you could afford to live in Vancouver, or I could afford to live in Vancouver.
I could live in the car, maybe.
Unless you're a member of the 1%, who can afford to live in Vancouver? Wow. We'll be over $1.70 by tomorrow, he says, and even more for diesel. It's 9:23. This is the Rob Snow Show. Happening now is a news conference, and this news conference features the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland.
We are not providing details.
Sean Fraser is the Immigration Minister.
We will be providing.
And this is Anita Anand, the Minister of National Defense.
Of high-resolution, modern satellite imagery. This capability will provide Ukraine's military with a strengthened ability to monitor the movement of Russian forces in and around their territory. We will
do everything that we can to support our Ukrainian friends who are fighting for their lives and their right to exist. And so I am announcing that beyond the military equipment that we are committed to sending to Ukraine, and which we have sent in the previous 30 days,
contributions
we have two new
importantes.
important contributions.
Nous avons
Firstly,
l'intention de fournir
we will
une
be
aide létale supplémentaire
sending
à
additional
l'Ukraine,
lethal aid
notamment
to
jusqu'à
Ukraine,
4
up to 4,500
et jusqu'à 7
rocket launchers
500
and up to
grenades à main.
7,500 hand grenades.
Ces armes seront tirées des
These
stocks
weapons
existants
will
des forces
come
armées
from
canadiennes
existing
et
stockpiles
seront
of the Canadian
transportées
Armed
dans la
Forces
région
and will be
aussi
sent
rapidement et
to the
sûrement
region as
que
quickly
possible.
and safely as possible.
Deuxièmement, nous
Secondly,
allons fournir également
we will
à
also
l'Ukraine
be
$1 million
giving the Ukraine $1 million for the purchase of high-resolution modern satellite imagery.
Cette capacité permettra.
All right, let me jump in here. Our parliamentary correspondent and parliamentary bureau chief Cormac McSweeney has been following this. We joined it a little late. But just while the minister is speaking French. So some new developments here. Canada will send rocket launchers and grenades to help with the resistance in Ukraine. And as well, the immigration minister said Canada will waive most visa requirements. Most visa requirements. People need to just fill out an application, submit biometrics for background screening, according to our parliamentary correspondent. And Chrystia Freeland also announced that Canada is revoking trading status with both Russia and Belarus. The only other country that Canada does not recognize is North Korea. So from now on, Russia and Belarus will face a tariff of 35% on any export to Canada. So that's the very latest out of this news conference. Back to just for a minute or so here, once more, Anita Anand.
Angry everyone. A more violent conflict is not what Ukraine, Canada, and the rest of the world want or need. We want peace in the region and the restoration of the world order. That is our goal, and that is the goal of our partners and allies.
Only Putin knows what Putin will do, and it is our job to do everything we can to protect as many lives as possible together with our NATO allies. As the Minister of National Defense, my commitment, our government's commitment, is to continue to do exactly that in the hours, days, and weeks to come. Slava Ukraini. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
All right, so we'll leave that. That is the Minister of Defense. On the rocket launchers and the grenades, it's 4,500 rocket launchers and 7,000 grenades. That's the update just now from the ministers. We're listening in. Our parliamentary bureau chief, Cormac McSweeney, with the latest report coming up this morning here on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 13. It's minus 12 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news at this hour. The federal government with another move to counter the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Canada revoking favored trading status of both Russia and Belarus. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says those countries no longer receiving low tariffs, both now paying 35% on all goods imported. North Korea, the only other country not receiving a tariff break. There will be no limit on the number of Ukrainians seeking to come to Canada. The immigration minister says the country will accept every Ukrainian application. The minister says this will allow Ukrainians under the program to stay for up to 2 years. As for sanctions against Russia, Chrystia Freeland, the deputy PM, says they're currently in place and they're having an effect on Russia, including Moody's dropping Russia's credit rating now to junk. Gas prices went up on Tuesday. They went up on Wednesday. They're expected to go up again tonight. Creeping toward Vancouver territory. People in the BC city paying $1.94 a litre this morning. We're about 30 cents cheaper, at least for the moment. Now, Dan McTagg says prices are going to be over $1.70 a litre tomorrow in Ottawa. He also tells the Rob Snow Show it'll be around $1.75 by this weekend. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're also monitoring the situation on the 417 East. 417 East. Big accident, several people sent to a hospital, and 417 East near Innis closed. I've been looking at some of the webcams, and the highway is just totally closed eastbound around Innis. So we're following that for you. It's time for Ontario Politics This Week with Lindsay Maskell, Liberal strategist. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, Rob.
And Andrew Brander, senior consultant at Crestview Strategy. Vice President.
Good morning.
I keep having to remind myself. Good morning, Andrew. Hope you're well.
I am.
Good. I want to start, we're going to mix a little federal politics in here as well. Patrick Brown is the former Ontario PC leader, former Conservative member of Parliament, current mayor of Brampton. He's going to be my guest on this show right after the 11 o'clock news this morning. What's he up to? He spoke out against Bill 21 in Quebec. Now he's asking the federal government to delay the next increase in the carbon tax, given these record prices that we're seeing for gasoline. There are rumors he wants to run for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Do you think those rumors are true, Lindsay Maskell?
Well, I do think he's exploring it, and I think you can see by some of the areas he dove into and ventured into that may not have been a top concern for people living in Brampton, to just sort of flex a bit of muscle and see who's interested and who would be supporting him. There's some other interested people. We're hearing Jean Charest exploring it. Obviously, some of the past contenders. So really, you can see him putting out feelers and seeing what kind of team he could build to make this run. And it's something that is a big differentiator for him, of course, is that of why he would talk about Quebec, is being not from there and being able to speak out about that a bit differently, to try to attract that kind of team that might be somebody that if Charest is in the race, that he would be the strong contender from a different area. So it is, you can kind of see him maneuvering, and we've talked about this, like he is somebody, despite us not sharing the same political values.
Right.
We've all been very impressed with his job as mayor of Brampton.
Oh, yeah?
And the ability to have a bit of a comeback, right, of that when people make mistakes, are they actually in the penalty box in politics for life, or can they come back? And he was not charged. There was an accusation. It was dismissed. And so, it's actually, it should be interesting for people to watch.
And since then, he's been married. He's had a child and everything, right? Maybe some maturity. He's still young, only 43 years old, but
very young and a long possible career. So if not this time, I feel like we're going to be talking about Patrick Brown for a long time to come, one way or the other.
All right, okay. Andrew, what do you think of these rumors here about a possible Patrick Brown run for leader for the Conservatives?
Well, I'm sure you will ask him.
I will. Oh, yeah, you bet I will. Yeah, for sure.
And I'd agree with a lot of Lindsay's assessment here. I don't think he's made any secret that he aspires to something larger in the future, despite saying, obviously, right now he remains focused on the city of Brampton. I'd agree with what Lindsay said as well in terms of, if not this time, maybe another time. And I think that's probably the question that's going through Patrick's head right now. As we know, the rules that govern this process were presented late last night. I think the release came out around 10 p.m. I do think the rules established here present the biggest challenge for Brown of all the serious prospective candidates.
Oh, yeah? Why do you say that?
Well, someone like Pierre or Leslyn Lewis, for example, have nothing to lose in running for leader. I think Patrick would clearly have to make the decision to leave the mayor's chair in order to run.
Right.
And while that's not an explicit rule, I do think we've seen municipal politicians try to run for MP or MPP without resigning. And members of the Conservative Party are certainly looking for a full-time leader that's committed. I don't think they'd look kindly on him holding that office while running. And the deadlines that were announced last night require a candidate to declare they want to enter the race by April 19th, even though the election isn't until mid-September. The municipal filing deadline tends to be somewhere around August, right at sort of smack dab in the middle of those two deadlines. So by that point, if he was not successful, it would be sort of impossible for him to, go back and re-enter the mayor's race. So that 5-month span actually takes not only Brown, but a lot of other possible contenders from various levels of government out of consideration. And you have to think that the members of LEOC, who, I'm not questioning their neutrality, but would have given that some consideration in their making of the rules. So as I said, these rules just came out at 10 p.m. last night. I have no doubt that Patrick and his entire team are sort of reviewing these and seeing really what the opportunities are that these rules present to him. He would have no problem, I should say, raising the money, getting the signatures. That stuff will all come with someone with Patrick's organizational abilities. The real problem here for him is those deadlines.
The deadlines. Okay. What kind of chance would he have? Lindsay? Do you give him a decent shot at it, or?
Yeah, for sure. Particularly, so he is, he is young and he is progressive. So if they are trying to stay on that track, and for the divides in the party right now, although I would say my personal opinion is the longer they waited to have their leadership convention, likely the more progressive candidate they would get. It is harder right now after people have been motivated and their base riled up through the occupation and protests that just recently ended. But, when you think about him, he is an excellent organizer. He's young. He would have that progressive base. He's known to be a very effective organizer in multicultural communities, which make a big difference and could actually counter some of that, the having to really secure Western Canada and the deep right conservative base to win a nomination in the current Conservative Party climate.
See, I was speaking with somebody yesterday who's been involved in conservative campaigns in the past, and we were just kind of kicking around this early leadership stuff and talking about Jean Charest. We just kind of came to the conclusion that I look at Poilievre and I look at somebody like Patrick Brown. I think they're just going to, if they're both in it, they would just campaign circles around somebody like Jean Charest. I really do think so. I mean, they'd be up before dawn and out well past dark to sell memberships. I mean, they are just like Energizer bunnies, those two. And I just don't know if, honestly, I don't know if Mr. Charest could keep up, and I don't think Mr. Charest has in any way the online game that either of them have. But those are just some of my thoughts. What do you think, Andrew?
I agree. When we're explicitly talking about chances, Charest's ability to serve as spoiler might be more relevant than his ability to actually win this type of leadership. Because, as you said, while both Pierre and Patrick would work very hard, I think anyone that knows Patrick knows that he is by far the hardest worker, and has an incredible ability to organize. That being said, I do think the more progressive candidates that enter the race, the harder it becomes for someone like Patrick to win, and that's why I do think his if he's coming to win, then he needs to make his decision very quickly.
Right.
He needs to be the progressive candidate of choice, and he needs to try to encourage those others to sit this one out and sort of unify around him, because Pierre has certainly proven his organizational capabilities in the early days of this so far uncontested leadership race.
All right. Let's turn our attention to what's been going on here in provincial politics with the Ontario election approaching, June 2nd, gas prices at record highs. This was all the talk in the legislature yesterday. Let's play a little bit of the question period yesterday.
Minister of Education, come a month. People can't afford it, Speaker. The Premier said he'd take on the big oil companies. He hasn't done so. He said he would take on overnight gouging. He hasn't done so. The oil companies are flush with money. They have billions of dollars in cash. And the drivers have record bills. So my question to the Premier is, why hasn't he stopped these big oil companies from gouging Ontarian drivers like he promised he would do? Why is he saying no?
To respond, the Premier. I can't believe what I just heard from the other side of the aisle. This is a government on the other side of the aisle, and I'm going to quote the member from Etobicoke Centre. Etobicoke Centre, they wanted an additional 35 cents. The leader wanted the largest carbon tax increase in the world, in the absolute world. It's increased gas prices by 11 cents. And Mr. Speaker, again, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth here. Mr. Speaker, we're putting money back into people's pockets.
I'm going to ask the Premier to take his seat, stop the clock.
Okay, all right. So that's a little bit from the question period yesterday morning. So look, the fact is Doug Ford promised he would cut gas prices. Now, maybe that was just a stretch goal. But whether it's fuel, food, housing, it's tough right now. Maybe about to get a lot tougher. Does that make the Premier, though, vulnerable on these affordability issues? What do you think, Lindsay?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's interesting. He is trying to, with the political commercial that has launched, trying to drive that narrative. But the truth is, the Premier has a very bad record on affordability. He promised lower gas prices, lower electricity, 12% reduction, lower gas prices, $1 a beer. Remember buck a beer? That we would be building more houses, and none of these have happened. And people are feeling the crunch. And the Premier is a very rich man, and it's very just in contrast to that, to have put into legislation to not get a $9,000 fine for not doing his job on time, right? So is he feeling the crunch? He really needed that $9,000. People are feeling it, even if you are somebody who is well off. You are feeling it in housing prices. You are feeling it in gas prices. You are feeling it if you are a person who goes to the grocery store. And this is something that the Conservatives have typically felt they have a strong position on. But there are some real commitments that people will remember because they were effective of just a few commitments, a few platform commitments in 2018. So it's clear that those weren't delivered. So it's the affordability frame for a campaign will be difficult for Doug Ford and the Conservatives in this current climate.
Okay. All right. What do you think, Andrew? I mean, we got record high gas prices. It's frightening to go to the grocery store. Housing, we all know about that cost of housing. Does that make the Premier vulnerable in the election campaign?
Look, I think any incumbent government will always be vulnerable when there are existing pocketbook issues that are so top of mind. No matter how much they are or are not in control of these situations, be it geopolitical or other. To their credit, now after a few years of governing experience, I think they're starting to recognize a little bit more what is and is not in their control. And they have found other ways of reducing some of those costs, even if they aren't at the source. So obviously, we talk about hydro rates, the implemented time of use. When we're talking about gas prices, they've removed tolls on highways and are refunding license plate stickers, to name a few ways of offsetting costs for people who use those things. But specifically, when it does come to gas prices, I think this government's fight against the carbon tax that they did in the early days, the ad campaign they ran, the gas pump stickers we all remember, despite how unsuccessful those efforts were in the long run, they did establish, I think, a brand for this government that they're going to fight for these things, despite if the results don't end up sort of matching those commitments. And I think if you put the question to voters today, specifically on things like gas prices, people might acknowledge the government hasn't lived up to their commitment, but I think people would tend to believe it would be much, much worse under the Liberals or the NDP.
All right, we'll be right back. This is the Rob Snow Show. It's Ontario Politics This Week, and this is City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manatik, the Manatik Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub, along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out of our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're back with Lindsay Maskell, Andrew Brander. We're talking about Ontario politics this week. Okay, so let's, we have the ad ready to go. We do not have the ad ready to go. No? Okay. All right, let's move on to something else then. On the Liberal side, Lindsay Maskell, I know you're going to be involved in the Liberal campaign. I don't get what your leader is doing over there, Stephen Del Duca. Now, look, I've had him on the program many, many times. Okay, and he's a smart guy. He's great at scoring the political point. He's great at the debate. But this week, I don't get what he's blathering on about. One of his big talking points this week, totally inside baseball, this promise to reinstate the March 31st deadline for the budget. Okay, totally inside baseball, doesn't relate to regular people. That's my own opinion. And the other is something about the deregulation of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I mean, we are in an affordability crisis right now here in the province of Ontario. There are all kinds of other things you can go after the government on. What is Del Duca on about? What is he talking about? Because these are not issues generally that people are paying any attention to, Lindsay. What's going on here?
Well, one thing that was missed in the list of focus of this week was an announcement about a commitment to the Scarborough Hospital. I doubt these ads are playing in the Ottawa area, but there is a massive campaign for the lack of healthcare and hospital services in the Scarborough area, and that was actually the big announcement that Stephen Del Duca made yesterday. But actually, the commitment to the budget date is actually in the affordability frame, which is that date, by not meeting that date, Doug Ford rescinded his own point that people should be fined if they don't meet it. And the Premier makes over $200,000 a year. He's a wealthy man. And in legislation, he removed that he would be paying that penalty of $9,000 for not meeting that commitment. So I think that wasn't the hospital has been the main message of the week, but that was why he would comment on the reinstatement of the budget deadline. Everybody has a job. They have timelines they have to meet. Yeah. And the Premier didn't meet his. And so he removed the fine for not doing his job. So that helps his pocketbook. But what is he doing to help every other Ontarian? Okay. What do you think? Andrew? About the issues that Del Duca's going on here this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to agree with you, Rob. It seems a little bit out to lunch in terms of what he's talking about, and I certainly sympathize with Lindsay if their intended message of the week was lost in other issues like a budget deadline or acupuncture. And sort of deregulation of traditional Chinese medicine, because those really aren't issues I think are specifically salient with voters. I mean, the one on traditional medicine might play in a few ridings in Richmond Hill and Markham, but I don't get the sense that his comments were made with the intention of targeting those seats. Rather, if the Liberals had a significant announcement on healthcare in Scarborough, certainly was lost on many people. So I think that points to a bigger communications problem in which the leader of the Liberal Party might want to spend a little more time examining, how to speak to the issues of the day, and things that are a bit more salient. Because I think everyone would agree there are, a number of vulnerabilities for this government.
Yeah, and Doug Ford promised he would cut the price of gas, and he hasn't. Why the Liberals are just, the New Democrats are at least, trying to hammer away on it. The Liberals are like in Nowheresville on this. I don't get it. Tell them to smarten up, Lindsay. You're in charge down there.
Well, you also have the benefit. I mean, we're in a bit of the vacuum of question period. So Andrea had that going while Stephen's out on the road. But right. I will take your advice, Rob.
Okay. All right. We have the ad. Yes.
Take a look. Across Ontario, more workers are joining the skilled trades as resources and industries in the north become part of the future of clean steel and electric vehicles.
A charge cord is plugged into a vehicle.
More jobs are being created. Bridges and highways are being built. Public transit is expanding, and new homes are being constructed. All for a growing province.
Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Ontario's economy.
Okay. Paid for by the Government of Ontario? Paid for by the Government of Ontario? Is that a Government of Ontario ad, or is that an Ontario PC ad? What do you think, Lindsay? There's a softball for you.
Well, it is definitely an Ontario PC ad, and I would say, in contrast to if you look at an ad that the Ontario Liberals put out in 2011, it is very similar, and we ran it as a political ad under the Liberal Party banner. These ads are known to kind of try to set the stage to have you don't hear the Premier's voice. It's not political for a reason, so that you can kind of try to shape how people are feeling about things in Ontario right now. But I think a lot of that doesn't ring true to people, particularly the line about, building more houses and how they should be feeling about the economy. So it is, it definitely needs to be built to the Conservative Party of Ontario.
Okay. Andrew?
It's a government ad. It says so that.
Oh my God, you're shameless sometimes.
Only sometimes. Look, there are very strict rules around advertising. They must pass a smell check. The Auditor General also has purview over these ads. Their costs fully disclosed in public accounts. And it's funny to hear Lindsay mention their last ads, because the Auditor General in the past had found that Kathleen Wynne's government spent tens of millions of dollars on ads that she said, quote, the only thing here is a desire to go out and tell people how great this government is. So look, there's accountability measures for these things. There's a risk with.
I'll tell you, if that passed the smell test, it's because somebody was holding their nose. That's all I can say to that. All right, we're out of time. A lot of fun this week. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon, everybody. Bye-bye. Ontario Politics this week with Lindsay Maskell and Andrew Brander. When we come back, we're kind of heavy-duty into the politics. Let's talk about this leadership race for the Conservative Party of Canada now that we know the rules. Who do you like? Who do you like? And who's your second choice for Conservative leader? This is the Rob Snow Show. Talkback Hour next. 750-1310 on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 13, minus 12 in Smith Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Night is falling in Ukraine, and that is bringing the possibility of intensified attacks on major Ukrainian cities from Russia. Here's City News reporter Momin Qureshi.
They're bracing for the potential of more Russian attacks. Multiple cities in Ukraine have been hit, and there is reports that Russia will be targeting several cities. Now, while there is a physical toll of all the buildings being damaged, there's also people who are being left homeless and forced to flee the country with more than 1 million refugees. Momin Qureshi, City News.
Now, our federal government has announced sweeping new measures to respond to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
Some major new initiatives being announced here by the federal government. First off, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says Canada's revoking the most favored nation trading status to Russia and Belarus over this invasion. The only other country that Canada has done that to is North Korea. So from now on, Russia and Belarus will face a tariff of 35% on any export coming to Canada. They're also placing new sanctions on some energy executives. The number of people or entities now facing sanctions from Canada tops 1,000. The immigration minister also announcing that Canada is ready to accept Ukrainian refugees, and there is no limit to the number of applications our country will accept. There are two streams, an emergency travel stream and a family reunification stream. On the emergency travel screen, Canada is going to be waiving most visa requirements, so people just need to fill out an application and submit biometrics for background screening. The defense minister, Anita Anand, also saying we're sending more lethal aid to Ukraine.
Which includes up to 4,500 M72 rocket launchers and up to 7,500 hand grenades.
Canada also giving Ukraine $1 million so it can access satellite imagery to help fend off the Russian invasion. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 10:04. An update on the 417 at Innes, still blocked due to a multi-vehicle crash this morning. OPP has updated that, saying it was about 7 o'clock. Officers were called to a 19-vehicle collision eastbound. 5 people were transported to hospital by ambulance. All injuries considered, though, non-life-threatening. Now your forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Most areas will clear out. Plenty of sunshine, but it's cold. A gusty northwest wind. We've already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about -11, drop to -21 for the overnight low. The average low is -10. Chance of flurries tomorrow, high -4. For today, already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, -11.
And right now, -13 in Ottawa. It's -12 in Smith Falls. Gas prices hovering around $1.65 a litre in Ottawa today, set to increase again tonight and then again into the weekend. Dan McTagg of Canadians for Affordable Energy says if you see it lower than about $1.65, that's because the gas stations may have a little bit of wiggle room.
See them as low as $1.58. Anything below that is really below cost selling. So you got to ask yourself, are they selling a lot of beef jerky, or do they have a rich uncle or a friendly bank, or what's the catch?
McTagg tells the Rob Snow Show the increase set to take place tonight is another 7 cents a litre. By the weekend, we could be just over $1.75 a litre. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? You know some of the names. Pierre Poilievre, Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Peter MacKay, Michael Chong, Leslyn Lewis, Tasha Keratin. Who do you like? Why do you like that person? And who is your second choice? Who is your second choice? Okay? So here's how this is going to work. You give me a call, 750-1310, 750-1310. 613-750-1310. Give me your chosen favorite, your chosen one. But then you have to give me your second choice because, ranked ballot, second choice is very important. Okay, so it's easy. Who is your pick to lead the Conservative Party of Canada? And then who's your second choice? And then tell me why. 750-1310. I'm going to keep track. I'm going to keep track of your answers. So let's get to it here. Some people have called in already. From Lauren Yao, Nicola. Long time.
Well, Pierre Poilievre and Leslyn Lewis, number 2.
Okay, why is that?
And I love him because he's doesn't take any guff from the media. And Leslyn Lewis, I find her a bit weak on economics, but she has some sort of law degree in environmental whatever, so that would appeal to the people in Toronto and so on.
Okay, yeah.
And just changing the image of the party, But Jean Charest, I have a long memory. I remember him, he was dissing Preston Manning when he was leader of the Conservative Party and Preston was in charge of the Reform. And he called Preston Manning a bigot.
Okay.
So Pierre Poilievre should dig out those old quotes.
So it sounds like you're kind of like anybody but Charest.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah? Okay, all right.
And I'm very suspicious that everybody's pushing Charest, and Pierre Poilievre, he would normally get a lot of...
Well, certainly there's a group of Conservative MPs who would like Charest to be in the race. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right?
So he's going to take people away from Quebec from Pierre Poilievre, who normally would probably be maybe not the French candidate, but, the one that would get a lot of people from Quebec supporting him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you. Yeah, great to hear from you. 750-1310, 750-1310. Pierre Poilievre, Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Peter MacKay, Michael Chong, Leslyn Lewis, Tasha Keratin. They may or may not be on a ballot for the Conservative leadership. Who do you like, and who is your runner-up, your second choice? Nick in Ottawa. Nick.
Hey, Rob. So
hey,
for myself, I'd probably have to go with Pierre Poilievre as my number 1.
Okay.
Multiple reasons for that, right? I mean, we've got a guy that he's, for lack of better words, he's a career politician. He went to school for it. He knows this through and through. He does his homework. When he actually goes against something, that the Liberals are doing, for example, he doesn't just talk out of his butt. He's also very well spoken. He is bilingual. He's like, he's born in Manitoba, lived in out west. Now he's here in Ontario. Like, He's known across the country, and he doesn't stand down, and he's not wishy-washy. I mean, O'Toole and Scheer I find they were a little more wishy-washy. I mean, Pierre's probably one of the more conservatives there's been in a while.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Yeah.
I mean, my number 2 would probably be Brown.
Patrick Brown, okay. All right.
He'd probably be my number 2. Only because I think like Josh Array, listen, like you've had your chance. Peter MacKay, same kind of thing, right? I think we need something different than what there has been, because they're just repeating what's already been done. Whereas I think Brown is the next step behind Pierre for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, sir. 750-1310. 750-1310. First and second choices for conservative leadership. Kate, Ottawa. Good morning, Kate.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Kate.
Definitely Pierre Poilievre, number 1. I actually let my conservative membership lapse, and I will not be joining the Conservative Party again unless Pierre is the leader. The reason being is I don't see anybody else. Actually, Leslie Lewis would be my second choice if I was a voting member.
Okay.
But I won't be joining the Conservative Party again unless Pierre is the leader, and that reason being is I don't see anybody else strong enough and willing to put up with the backlash that comes with going against the Liberal Party. Pierre wears the name tag of Bulldog with honor. He actually did a video on it, if you haven't seen it. And if Pierre doesn't become the leader, I'll be voting for PPC.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Thank you. Okay. This one here. Brandon in Barrhaven. Brandon.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Who should be the next conservative leader?
For me, I'm definitely all in on Peter MacKay. And
Peter MacKay, okay.
I played rugby against MacKay on the East Coast 25 years ago, and I think where we're headed, if we're going to be in whatever happens with the NATO action, I want Peter MacKay in charge.
Really? Okay. All right. That's interesting. Second choice?
Patrick Brown. Good speaker, fairly moderate. I mean, I would consider myself probably a classic Liberal, but not a Trudeau fan, so Brown works for me.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Duly noted. Duly noted. Let's take another one here. 750-1310. Armand in Ottawa. Armand.
Yeah, good morning.
Hi.
Poilievre is first, and Peter MacKay is second.
And Peter MacKay second.
Poilievre will get the job done, and MacKay, if he comes in first, he'll also know what to do because he knows his way around Parliament, so he can get the job done also. So those are my 2 top picks.
Okay. And what do you like about Poilievre, Armand?
Poilievre is strong. He's a strong leader. He's not afraid to basically say, I want this done, basically.
Right,
and let's get it done. And not wimp around of all kinds of those Liberals and all that. He's
not wishy-washy. He's not wishy-washy.
No, exactly. He's right on.
He's right on. Okay. All right, Armand, thank you. Yep, we're whipping through these. 10:13 right now. It's Poilievre in a landslide. I want to get an early feeling of, what way you're leaning with this leadership race since the details have been announced. Came out last night about how this is all going to go down. The leadership is going to be decided on September 10th, which is the Thursday following the Labor Day long weekend. And then candidates have until June 3rd to sign up new members. They'll need to put down $200,000 entry fee, $100,000 deposit, and then they're kind of off to the races. Off to the races, okay? Now, there's only one declared candidate so far, and that's Poilievre, the member from Carleton. And a lot of people think he's the man to beat right now. He is the person to beat right now, but you never know. He's not going to be the only one in the race. Could be a crowded field. And getting that down ballot support is going to be the key to the whole thing. I mean, that's what put Aaron O'Toole over the top against Peter MacKay last time around, right? If you don't walk away with it early, the longer it goes, the harder it gets. Now, I know on this show, Poilievre always gets a lot of support on this show. A lot of people know the man. A lot of people have voted for him because he's been there for so long. It always goes that way when we talk about conservative leadership politics on this show. A lot of you called me during the last leadership race and said you wanted him to run. And A lot of people thought he was going to run, and then he decided it wasn't the right time, and now he's decided it's the perfect time. It's his time, that the stars have aligned for him, and the political gods are kind of shining down on him. What do you think? What do you think? Let's take this line right here, Franktown. Bill.
Hi.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Rob.
Who do you like?
I like Leslyn Lewis.
Leslyn Lewis, okay.
Yeah, and like as far as I'm concerned, this has got to be a priority political decision because we've got to get more of a minority vote, we've got to get more of a woman vote, women's vote, and we got to get the city involved. So she's got all three things right there. Pierre Poilievre would make a great deputy prime minister.
Okay.
And he's going to be much more effective. Being the bulldog that he is.
I see.
And
okay.
He's not going to, he's not going to get the Toronto vote. He's not going to get the women vote. His hair isn't nice enough. And then for second, I don't want Charest. He's got too much history.
Too much history. Okay.
He's a liberal. He's a conservative. He was in that involved in that Montreal corruption scandal. That's not the kind of guy we want. Like
too much baggage. You think he's got too much baggage?
Way too much baggage.
Right.
And
okay.
I do not want to see go through another.
Well, the one that they're really going to hang him with, his opponents are really going to hang him with, is the Huawei stuff. The fact that he did some work for Huawei while the two Michaels were held hostage, right? I mean, gosh, I don't know how you overcome that. That's going to be that's a tough hill to climb right there. But and there, and the Poilievre team is all, which has a lot of Harper people in it. They're hammering away already at Charest all over social media about that. Right?
Yeah.
So
well, like I say, Pierre is the perfect candidate for deputy prime minister and be the bulldog.
But you like Leslyn Lewis. Who's your second choice then? Poilievre?
No, because I really want him in that position of deputy prime minister.
Right.
Still be as effective. I don't want McKay. I'd have to see who else steps into the ring, but number one is Leslyn Lewis.
Number one is Leslyn Lewis, and I can't even get you on it. There's Michael Chong, there's Tasha Carradine, there's
no. Yeah, but none of it. You see, we can spew out all these names we want.
Yeah.
But unless they've got the money, you got the backing,
Okay. All right.
Like,
Patrick Brown? Patrick Brown? No? Yeah, okay. All right, okay. All right. You're tough to win over, Bill. Thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
Right.
Okay, 1017. There's one for Leslyn Lewis, but not for Poilievre. Okay. First and second choices for conservative leader, now that we know the rules of the game. Let's see where you are. 750-1310. Be right back on the Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our second generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest. People were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again is, and fortunate, is at our product offering. You know, work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it. What we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, you know, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application, and it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? I have an imaginary ballot here. Poilievre, Pierre Poilievre, Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Peter MacKay, Michael Chong, Leslyn Lewis, and Tasha Keridan. That's my imaginary ballot. Who do you like? Why? And I want to know your second choice as well. That's very important to have your second choice. Bill, Toronto. Bill.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bill.
I am actually a card-carrying voting member, so I will be voting on this. Poilievre is the man. I mean, he checks every box at least 2 times, if not 3. His competence level is just beyond. It's the best thing we've got in Ottawa. And Leslyn Lewis would be number 2. And the thing was, under O'Toole, she was just kind of put to the side.
Oh, yeah.
This woman she needs to be up to the forefront of the party. This is a woman that's going to play an important part in this party going down the road.
All right, Bill, thank you. Thank you.
The last guy I wouldn't put my vote for is Patrick Brown.
Oh, really?
He's the worst thing that ever got into politics. He's the politician you don't want in politics.
Oh, really? What makes you say that?
I just followed his career. I followed him out in Brampton. I followed him playing hockey in the arena when it was all locked down to kids, but him and his buddies went and
That's
played.
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just the wrong guy to be in politics, period.
Okay. All right, Bill. Thank you. He's also my special guest right after the 11 o'clock news. He is. This is the Rob Snow Show. Rose in Stittsville. Rose.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Rose.
Pierre, all the way.
Pierre, all the way. Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, even before COVID, I've been following him for years, and he's so strong, and he would be the best as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
My number 2 would be Leslyn Lewis.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Pleck's really good, but he's not right. He's a senator, and he can't leave, but... He's good, too.
And why would you leave the Senate, right? If you got that cushy gig. I'd never leave. Yeah. It'd be all you could do to get me to show up to work in the first place if I was a senator.
Yeah, Pierre's on fire. I love
All right, Pierre Poilievre and Leslyn Lewis. Yeah, I see a trend emerging here at 10:23 in the morning on the Thursday morning Talkback Hour. Michelle is in Ottawa South. Michelle, you're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Who do you like?
Well, if Lindsay Maskell is cheerleading for Patrick Brown to be the best pick from the recycle rejected pile, there's your answer. Don't even make eye contact ever. I am a Pierre Poilievre fan for one particular reason. He actually answers a question. When asked a question, he gives you an answer that you can actually hear in the first sentence. It's amazing. It's a skill that's long forgotten in politics. Peter MacKay doesn't even have a seat. So with this issue in Ukraine right now, I think we really need to be looking at the world as there is a lot of trouble here, and we need leadership available today and now.
Okay.
And Leslyn Lewis, I love her. I supported her for the last race, if only because she's pro-life. But I did see in her a very quiet person, a very soft-spoken person, very intelligent, very accomplished, very needed there, but I don't think she has the strength to take on the world right now in the shape that it's in. And I really think
so who's your second choice? Who's your second choice then?
If the names that you put forward are the only choices that I have to pick from, I'm actually going to start taking a real close look at Michael Chong.
Okay.
I didn't really consider him before.
Yeah.
But if it's I don't even know if he's bilingual, to be honest with him, and that's extremely important too. So, and I don't know if he has the set to stand up for himself and what he believes in, and that's another thing that Pierre exemplifies. If he believes in it, he doesn't call you names and tell you you're stupid and dumb. He explains why he believes in it, and he can give you proof to back his arguments. The man is incredible, and we should be clapping.
My gosh, holy cow. Okay. High praise for Polyev today. High praise for Polyev. Okay. Curtis in Carlton Place, you're on City News. Curtis.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Curtis, who do you like
good.
here?
So I'm going to go for Polyev for my first choice.
Okay.
Only because being rural, he shows up at a lot of events. He does a lot of legwork, even prior to the race.
Yeah.
Ducks Unlimited, a lot of the community things. I love him as a politician too. So, and you got to have some comedy in question period too, right? So there's that.
He's very good in question period. He understands the theater of it all. That's for sure. Yeah.
And he knows economics, which we really need right now.
Okay. Second choice.
Leslyn Lewis. I voted for her the last round.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Very intelligent. Also gets with a lot of points with me. But I'll tell you, they're going to lose a lot of votes if Pierre doesn't get a ballot. If he doesn't win this, a lot of people are going to jump to the PPC.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
I've heard it over and over and over again.
Well, we've heard it here already on this show, so that's interesting. Yeah.
So, and that's from a rural perspective anyway, so.
All right, Curtis. Thank you. I'm going to jump in. I want to fit in one more here just before the news, if David will let me. Sure, David will let me. Vern in Barrhaven. Vern.
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Who do you like, Vern?
Oh, absolutely Pierre.
Okay.
And definitely not Patrick Brown. I can remember when he won the leadership provincially and he jumped up on the stage at downtown Ottawa and announced that he was in favor of a carbon tax. That went over like a pregnant high jumper. But So a second choice, I'm thinking maybe I'd like to know more about Michael Chong.
Okay, all right.
Leslyn hasn't been bloodied enough yet to really put up with the cut and thrust, I don't think so. It's a nasty business. But anyways, those are my choices.
Excellent.
Pierre
Okay.
for sure, and undecided.
And maybe undecided, but willing to listen to Michael Chong. Okay, so we're halfway there. Right now, Pierre Polyev would win overwhelmingly on the first ballot. We have nine for Pierre, 1 for Peter MacKay, and 1 for Leslyn Lewis. That's first choices. And as for second choices, Leslyn Lewis is in the lead as a second choice, followed by Patrick Brown twice as a second choice, Michael Chong twice, and Peter MacKay once as a second choice. So that's all interesting. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show, second half of the Talkback Hour right after the news on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 12 degrees. In Smith Falls, minus 11. And here's what's making news at this hour. Canada is allowing an unlimited number of Ukrainians into the country. No visa, no work permit, no student visa. The Immigration Department says this will allow Ukrainians who apply and hand in their biometric information to come to Canada for up to 2 years. Canada imposing more sanctions on Russia and Belarus today, an import tax of 35% on all goods brought in from those two countries. The only other country in the world facing that tariff is North Korea. A 19-vehicle foul-up this morning on the 417 created quite the struggle for the morning commute. Anyone traveling eastbound on the 417 at Innis, 5 people were injured and taken to hospital. The OPP said all 5 had non-life-threatening injuries. That scene has now been cleared. Gas prices are going up again tonight and tomorrow night and for the foreseeable future. The price of oil went up briefly to $114 a barrel this morning before settling back a bit. One gas price expert tells City News this morning you can expect $1.75 at the pumps by this weekend. City News time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party of Canada? I have an imaginary ballot here. And who would be your second choice? Some of the names on my list: Pierre Poilievre, Jean Charest. A lot of media attention right now, Mr. Charest. Patrick Brown, my guest in about a half an hour here on the Rob Snow Show. Peter MacKay ran last time, lost to Aaron O'Toole. Michael Chong, Conservative MP right now, Foreign Affairs critic. Leslyn Lewis, Conservative MP, largely sidelined by Aaron O'Toole. Columnist and media commentator, Tasha Carradine. Who do you like? And who is your second choice? Let's get right back to it here. Rona Barhaven.
No, it's Ron.
Oh, Ron. Sorry. It says Rona here. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, number one choice is Leslyn Lewis.
Okay.
I think she's everything the party needs right now. Environmental degree, the whole 9 yards. She can fight this carbon tax nonsense. And number two is Poilievre.
Number 2 is Poilievre. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Carbon tax Brown? No, not a chance. I haven't forgotten. Wasn't there allegations also of sexual assault and real estate shenanigans? He's got baggage.
He's got too much baggage. Yeah.
Just like Charest. I don't know anything about Mr. Chong, so I will look into that.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, no problem. 750-1310, there's a line available. Is it Gio in Nepean?
Hey, Rob, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. Who do you like for the Conservative leadership?
Well, I have a bit of a hot take. You mentioned I'm in Nepean. I'm half and half. I also live in the south end of Ottawa. So
okay.
As you may know, Poilievre is our representative there, and I will openly say I voted for him. And I think he's now. I'd like to say the hot take. I love him. I think he's great, a great community person. He actually responds. He actually communicates. I've met him quite a few times.
Okay.
And he definitely is the same person that you see in those videos that he posts on YouTube. But I will say I don't think he's fit to be a leader. I feel like the leader disease will get him, and he'll turn in. As bad as that sounds, I feel like he'll be tainted if he becomes the leader of the Conservative Party. I really hope that's not the case.
Okay.
I gotta say though, I really feel like though. Because I think it would be interesting. I'd like to see Peter MacKay as my first pick, as a very, very hot take.
All right.
No disrespect to Poilievre or the other people, but I think that he was close. I believe he was the runner-up.
He was the runner-up. Yep.
So I think I'd like to see what he can do.
Okay.
But I would say MacKay as my first pick and Poilievre as my second pick. So,
all right. Good.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. Hot take. Gio, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir. Yeah. Like, I've been interviewing Poilievre since he first entered politics. I covered his first win as a news reporter way back when he defeated the Liberal Defense Minister, Mr. Pratt, in 2004 in the riding of Nepean-Carleton. And Poilievre at the time was 29, and he was Canada's youngest MP. And he's just been winning ever since. And look, the Liberals they've thrown everything at him. In 2019, they really went after that riding in 2019. I remember the Prime Minister on the very first day of the campaign in 2019, his first stop was Manotick. And Sophie Gregoire Trudeau campaigned in Manotick several times throughout the course of the campaign. And still, didn't matter. Poilievre ran away with it, 46% of the vote, beat the Liberal challenger by something like 4,000, 5,000 votes. It wasn't even close. The Liberals didn't really target Poilievre with the same gusto in the most recent election because the local battleground had shifted to Kanata-Carleton. You remember what a horse race that was in Kanata-Carleton because there was no incumbent there because Karen McCribbin, the Liberal, had announced she was getting out of politics. And that was a close race, and Jenna Sudds eventually won it for the Liberals, the former city councillor and local business advocate. There were times during Erin O'Toole's tenure as leader of the party, I'll be honest with you, I actually thought Poilievre was the real leader of the party. Like, didn't he come across as, well, I'm the real, yeah, okay, it says leader on his office door, but I'm actually the leader. Like, he was the greatest asset they had in opposition. And he just kind of did his own thing. He was untethered, unbothered by, like, whatever was going on in the leader's office. Can you imagine the uproar if O'Toole had, like, dumped Poilievre? Like, how would that have gone over, right? But when I put it to Poilievre, and I put it to him repeatedly, if he supported O'Toole's leadership, he always said, oh, of course I do. He was duly elected. He's the leader of our party, and I've always been loyal to the leader of our party. Which, what would you expect him to say? Well, no, I think he's doing a lousy job, and he should quit, and I should be the leader. But he's in. He's the only one who said he's in. But can he win? That's I think he can win the Conservative leadership. I wonder if he can win in a general election. But Vince in Nepean. Vince.
Well, Rob.
Yeah.
I know I'm amazed at the way people think Poilievre is going to be a good leader.
Okay.
This is the man who was in the Canadian Alliance Party, the Reform Party.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Right-wing extremist parties.
There are no right-wing extremist parties. Give your head a shake.
Right,
what?
They were.
Oh, come on. Don't you, Vince, you're just being... You think Preston Manning is like a right-wing extremist?
Hey, those guys...
You think Stockwell Day is like a right-wing extremist? Stockwell Day was a right-wing extremist?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, he was.
Vince,
yes, he was.
You're ridiculous. I'm not even going to talk to you anymore. Rodney. Lanark Islands. Rodney.
Yes, I'm back.
Like, I'm asking, conservatives who they want as the conservative leader. Like, come on. Not people who think Preston Manning is a right-wing extremist. Like, give me a break. Anyway, sorry, Rodney. Go ahead.
So, on your list of potential candidates.
Yeah.
Peter MacKay, 2 times loser.
Okay.
Yesterday's man.
Yesterday's man. All right.
Yep.
Jean Charest? Yeah.
He... Yesterday's man.
Yesterday's man. Okay.
They're both gone.
Both gone. Okay. Who's not yesterday's man or woman, Rodney?
Who's not?
Yeah.
To me, there's only 2.
All right.
Number 1, Leslie Lewis. Number 1. Because
okay.
I watched her I did a lot of work for her in the last leadership run-up.
Okay.
And I watched her being interviewed by friendly interviewers.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched her being interviewed by interviewers like Rosemary Barton at CBC,
mm-hmm.
who attempted to trash Leslie Lewis, and she couldn't do it. No one has been able to trip up Leslie Lewis and get her to say something that she doesn't want to say.
Okay.
Her messaging is clear.
Okay.
And it's concise, and she's to the point. She's well educated, unlike our current Prime Minister, and then she's got an environmental background and a legal background. She speaks very well. And for number 2,
yep,
the Conservative Party bulldog,
Pierre Poilievre.
Pierre Poilievre.
All right. Okay. But you prefer Lewis over Poilievre?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
She came. She was a dark horse in the last runner-up.
Yep.
And while she ranked third, the way the balloting was, she actually received the most popular votes. But she couldn't win Quebec because of her lack of French at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And
right.
I'm thinking that now that she's elected in a safe Conservative riding, she's in good position to run. And the other thing is, Mr. Trudeau is not going to be in the Prime Minister's chair much longer. And we all know who the woman is that's going to replace him. And Leslyn Lewis can stand up to her.
Okay. All right. Interesting analysis, Rodney. I appreciate that. Thank you. Westboro. Helen in Westboro.
Good morning.
Hi, Helen. Who do you like here?
Big surprise. I like Pierre Poilievre.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And second choice?
My second choice is Michael Chung.
Michael Chong. Okay. Yeah.
Chong. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've seen him in a lot of question periods. He's had work experience besides being an MP. You know, he's been a lawyer. He's worked for, he's been on hospital boards. He's very smart. He withdrew from Parliament when they wanted to have the Canadian Quebec seen as a separate nation. He withdrew from Parliament because of that. He also proposed the Reform Act that would give the caucus more power, and I like that.
Yeah.
So, but Pierre is number 1. Number 2, Michael Chong. Number 0, Peter MacKay.
Number 0. Again, Peter MacKay. You don't like Peter MacKay, right?
I do not like Peter
MacKay.
MacKay.
All right. Okay.
Nor Jean Charest either,
Or Jean
by the way.
Charest. Okay. All right. Yesterday's men, by the sounds of it. Not a single vote for Jean Charest either as a first or second choice here on our show. Michael Chong's always impressed me whenever I've had the opportunity to interview him. Haven't interviewed him many times, but half a dozen times over the years. Very smart, clear-headed, great communicator. He gives a great speech. I don't think the Harper people like him too much. He came up with the Reform Act, and that was more or less a shot at what they said was Harper's dictatorial style. You know, Harper the control freak. I always thought people made too much of that anyway. If you have a party like the Conservative Party, you need discipline at the top, especially messaging discipline, right? Because there are so many different types of conservatives. I mean, you have, Atlantic Canadian, Eastern Red Tories. You have soft Quebec nationalists. You have, just in Ontario, you have Bill Davis PCers. You have Mike Harris conservatives. You have Doug Ford conservatives. You have Bible Belt social conservatives. You have Western reformers. It's like herding cats sometimes if you're the leader of the Conservative Party. You've got this coalition that you've got to keep together. And as we have seen since the departure of Stephen Harper, that is not an easy thing to do. That is not an easy thing to do. I don't know if Michael Chong could do it. Maybe Pierre Poilievre could do something like that. He's been around long enough. He would think he would understand all of the nuances there. He's been there since, 18 years or something. Brandon in Blackburn, Hannah. Brandon.
Yes.
Hi, Brandon.
VJ, sweet, all the way.
Who? Sorry?
NDP, all the way.
No, I'm not asking about the NDP. I'm not asking about the NDP, sir. Sorry. Joanne.
Well, at least you know they're listening.
Okay, yeah, sure, okay. Who do you like?
You described the party very well, by the way. That's exactly what it's like, herding cats.
Herding cats.
In that way, it's respectful of people's differences, and in another way, it's impossible to lead. I personally, right now, I think something significant is happening, and it is a good time to be a conservative. What conservatives have not been able to do is persuade We haven't had the media power to do it, and now circumstances are doing it. So that even if you believe, for example, in climate change, all this time Conservatives have balanced that existential risk with realpolitik. So now energy policies are national security policies. So when I look at leadership, I want to know that someone who is a true believer in conservative policies, with all the rights and freedoms and responsibilities that are there, that's who I want leading the party, because it ends up vindicating itself. So Patrick Brown, sorry, no, he's just another Aaron O'Toole who deceived his own party and deceived his own comrades, surprised them with a change in policy.
You mean like wooing Campaign Life Coalition, the landowners, and things like this, and then basically as soon as he took power, sorry, I disown you all, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And introducing the carbon tax.
And carbon tax, with the landowners,
So I just think the people who were working for O'Toole have gone and they're whispering in Patrick Brown's ear.
Okay.
So when you look at your ideas and policies and convictions proving themselves over time, to me that shows who should, like cream, rise to the top. And for me, Sheree, McKay, I'm sorry, your time has come and gone. I couldn't conceive of a Conservative Party led by them. And unfortunately, Tasha Kiridan, who I've read for years and followed at the Canada Strong and Free, they're an organization that hosts roundtables online, and it's been very, very interesting. But no, not her either.
Okay.
It has to be, to me, so far, Poilievre.
Okay.
Because they're left of center. To me, Poilievre is center right, a little bit on the right. Leslyn Lewis is impressive. She was impressive in the past. She's impressive now. She will be impressive in the future. However, the Conservative Party has many impressive women. And it's one thing that we may not have many bilingual, impressive bilingual people, but we certainly have a lot of impressive women. So it's not, I think it would
all right, give me a second choice. Give me a second choice. Give me a second choice.
Freeland, but I don't know if she's ready.
Joanne, I need a second choice from you. Who? Second choice. Joanne?
Gosh. Well, I guess it would be Leslyn. No question.
Because you'd have to fill it out right on the ballot. So
yeah.
Okay, Joanne, thank you. I got to jump. We're a little bit behind here. So there are a couple of lines available, and we'll have, when we come back, probably about 8 minutes or so to take some calls at 750-1310. It's been a hot hour. It's been a lot of fun talking about these things. The leadership rules are out for the Conservative Party. Decision day is on the 10th of September. Who do you like for a Conservative leader to replace Aaron O'Toole? It's kind of Poilievre in a landslide here. Love to hear from you. Rob Snow Show, 750-1310 on City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. The other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. It's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Who should be the next leader of the Conservative Party now that we know the rules of the game? And who is your second choice? 750-1310. Nepean is a wonderful place to be in. Al is in Nepean. Good morning, Al.
Hi, Rob. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. Who do you like here?
I will be voting, as I'm a card-carrying Conservative, so I like both Pierre and Peter MacKay. So I have to make that decision. But the one I will not vote for, because of the corruption he created in Ottawa West Nepean, is Patrick Brown.
Oh yeah, Patrick Brown. Okay.
If you recall.
Okay. There were.
There was a huge. The president of the Conservative Association resigned because of the corruption, and he is definitely behind part of that. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it's easy to find out the full story by Googling.
There were more. I mean, the allegation was they stuffed a ballot box.
Exactly. I was there.
You were there.
I saw some things at the polling booth there, so I won't elaborate. But the whole story is, if you Google PC party, her name is Emma McLennan, and she resigned because of the corruption. Right. Long-time president.
Okay.
But anyways, I really
Polyev or... who would be your first choice?
I voted for Peter MacKay in the last. I tend to be on the progressive side.
Okay, all right.
But I like Pierre's economic background big time. So.
Okay.
And it's going to be both of those are going to be 1 and 2. I'd say Pierre first and then Peter second. But definitely not Patrick Brown.
Definitely not Patrick Brown. Okay.
I will cut up my card if he becomes.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Thanks, Rob.
There's a few people who want to do that. Okay. Madeline. Miss Fall.
Hi.
Hi, Madeline.
Hi. My first time calling.
I appreciate that.
I definitely am horrified by all the people who want to support Pierre Poilievre. I used to be a fan of his. I thought he was an excellent financial critic for the opposition party. But I'm surprised because, he had such an error of judgment in supporting the convoy of truckers who were assaulting people in Ottawa. We might be on the verge of a third world war. Are people really willing to send their sons and daughters off to fight and die under the leadership of a guy who's never held any other job? What does he know about running businesses? The scales have fallen from my eyes where Pierre Poilievre is concerned. Did you see that ad he put out when he announced his leadership? It was like Uncle Sam wants you. It was cringeworthy. I can't believe.
Okay.
Well,
believe it.
I have family and friends who have been staunch conservatives all their lives, somewhere to the right of Genghis Khan, and they are looking askance at what's happening with the Conservative Party. So I really hope
that's not the only name on the list. There are lots of names on the list. Do you want to pick one?
Okay, I'll say Peter MacKay simply because I think he's a cooler head to be in wartime running the country. I haven't been a fan of his before, but compared to the others, he's streets ahead. And as for second choice, I'm going to say come back Stephen Harper, all is forgiven.
Oh, really? Okay. He's not on my list, but I'll put a footnote there, and one for Harper.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
People need to give.
But you're really turned off by Poilievre.
I mean, I really liked him. I think he's intelligent in some ways, but that was such an error of judgment.
Okay.
And then when he saw what was unfolding, he didn't walk it back.
Well, he tried to. He tried to. He said, "Well, I've always
too little, too late.
Too little, too late." Fair enough. He's going to have to answer for that.
Incredibly poor judgment under pressure. How is he going to function if we're at war?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, He will have to answer for that. And a lot of people in the Conservative Party are going to have to answer for that, I think. And it's not gone well for them. And even a worse look is you say for weeks on end, I'm standing up for freedom, and I'm defending these other people who are standing up for freedom, and then Russian tanks roll into Ukraine, and you see what real tyranny and the potential loss of freedom looks like. And everything is put into a brand new perspective. So, yeah, your point is well taken. But at the end of the hour, let's add him up here. First choice, first kind of ballot voting here. It's Poilievre with 12, and then McKay and Lewis with 3 each. Okay? And for second choice, it was Lewis with 6, Poilievre with 3, Chong with 3, and then Peter McKay and Patrick Brown with 2 each. Getting no votes for their first choice, Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Michael Chong, or Tasha Keratin. Nobody put them first. Okay, just curious. It's totally unscientific. It's just a radio call-in poll, and it was a lot of fun. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, minus 12 degrees in Ottawa, minus 11 in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's an ominous warning today from Ukraine. President Zelensky, through a translator, says the world has got to pay attention and react more strongly to the Russian attack on his country.
This is the end of the world. If there are such actions, this world is at an end for people like that. The issue is that we are the border, the fence between them and the civilization.
So far, it's estimated 1 million people have fled Ukraine. New tariffs on Russia, more lethal weapons for Ukraine, and fast-tracking Ukrainians who want to flee the violence and come to Canada. Sweeping new measures from the federal government as part of its response to the Russian invasion. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The Trudeau government revealed the series of measures in a news conference this morning in the capital. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland announcing that our country is now stripping Russia and Belarus of their most favored nation trading status, which typically allows for low tariffs in trading. That means the price for companies in these countries to send goods to Canada will increase dramatically.
Russia and Belarus will be subject to a tariff of 35% on their exports to Canada.
Freeland says a number of Russian energy executives are also now facing sanctions, bringing the total number of people and entities facing sanctions from Canada to more than 1,000. Meanwhile, Immigration Minister Sean Fraser says Canada's creating emergency travel and family reunification streams for Ukrainians looking to flee the violence and come to our country. All they have to do is fill in an application and submit biometrics for background security checks.
Process people in large numbers in a very expeditious way and still protect against that security risk of the people who've actually been fighting against Ukrainians for the past 8 years.
And he says there will be no limit to the number of applications from Ukrainians that Canada will accept. The defense minister also announcing that Canada will be sending more lethal aid to Ukraine to help fight off the Russian invaders. That includes 4,500 rocket launchers and 7,500 grenades. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News time 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Most areas will clear out, plenty of sunshine, but it's cold, gusty northwest wind. We've already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, we'll sit at about minus 11, drop to minus 21 for the overnight low. The average low is minus 10. Chance of flurries tomorrow, high minus 4. For today, already reached our high for the day. For the afternoon, minus 11.
And right now it's minus 12 in Ottawa, minus 11 in Smiths Falls. Now, gas prices are expected to surge to unprecedented highs today in Ottawa and across the country. Dan McTagg, the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy, telling the Rob Snow Show this morning what you can expect the day before the prices go up.
We're seeing a lot of $1.65.9 at the top end. Some gas stations, in fact, a lot of them might be less than that. That's because gas stations control about 7 cents a liter, 7.5 cents, what's called a retail margin. But we're looking tomorrow across the board increase here in Ottawa of at least 7 cents a liter. So that will push us up to the $1.73.9 range.
Now, although this projection is still in the early stage, McTagg says gas in Ottawa could be at $1.79 very early, possibly by the start of next week. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All right. Coming up, we have a half an hour of mayors on the Rob Snow Show. Coming up in about 10 minutes from now, the mayor of Cornwall is going to be here, Glenn Grant. But first, the mayor of Brampton is with me, Patrick Brown. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Great to be back on your show.
Yeah, nice to hear from you. You are urging the federal government to delay April's increase in the carbon tax. Why?
Well, this last 2 years hasn't just been a health pandemic. It's been an economic tidal wave, and I've had businesses in my community go under. I know the families. I know the people that have operated these businesses. It's been tough. It's been tough on families and small businesses. And, my approach is there should be no new burdens, no new taxes at a time that people are struggling to stay afloat. And the notion that we'd have an additional burden right now it's absolutely the worst time. Not to mention, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the instability that causes, there's going to be economic repercussions, with inflation. There are just too many pressure points right now. We need to get back on our feet post-COVID, and this will not help.
Okay. Since you made your appeal, have you heard anything back?
So I haven't heard a response. We wrote that letter to Krista Freeland yesterday, but I've certainly had a lot of feedback from residents agreeing that right now it's tough. It's a tough go. I don't think there's an appreciation in the bubble of the House of Commons, the challenges that Canadians are facing, and there's a lot of people who have really spent to their limit. Their savings have been exhausted. Their businesses are on the brink. There's a lot of Canadians feeling a lot of pain right now, and I don't want to see anything that would cause that would cause a business to go into bankruptcy. I don't want to see any new pressures that will make it even harder for families.
Well, I mean, it's just the latest in a kind of a series of things that have really caused a lot of financial anxiety for people. We have these record high fuel prices, but inflation has been surging, as you well know. So that's causing some problems at the grocery store. People are calling my show and saying, I look at my grocery bill and it's sad what I'm getting in return. And I'm sure you're in Brampton. I don't know what a house costs in Brampton, but given you're so close to the Toronto area, housing is a big issue too. So we really have an affordability crisis, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. You can't find a house for under $1 million right now, and there's a semi-detached that sold for $1.6 million. And so it really is the totality of pressures that I'm speaking to. You can't have every pressure point become more intense and not expect there to be repercussions on small businesses. And so I'm very much concerned that this would be another pressure point that would damage our ability to get back on our feet. This has not been an easy 2 years. And everything has been focused on health, and of course it had to be. There were serious health concerns, but I think right now, as we emerge from COVID-19, we really need to look at how we support our small businesses to get back on their feet.
Okay. Let me get some understanding in your capacity as the mayor. How does it work for municipalities with the carbon tax? Municipalities have public transit systems to run ambulances, fire trucks, police cars, snowplows, everything else. All need fuel. How does it work for municipalities? Do municipalities pay the carbon tax? Do they get a rebate on the carbon tax? Can you give me a sense of how that works for a municipality?
Yeah, so just like everyone else, we pay that price. We pay that carbon tax, and it affects our bottom line. And I've had to work hard the last few years to freeze taxes. We've actually frozen property taxes in Brampton for the entire pandemic, and if there are new pressure points that make it more difficult, that is an additional consequence. And so it isn't just the tax on small businesses and families and this increase on April 1st. It has ramifications down the line. Does that put pressure points on provincial transit systems? Does that put, pressure points on municipal transit systems? And so, there are additional consequences. So, you're very right to point that out.
Okay. The gas tax revenue that you get from upper levels of government, what strings come attached with that? As I understand it, some of it can only be spent on public transit. You couldn't use it to offset rising fuel prices for your police service, for example.
No, and so, there is, and they changed the name. It's no longer called a gas tax transfer, but, that transfer from the federal government that was made permanent by the late Jim Flaherty is an important revenue stream for municipalities to invest in our transit infrastructure, and it is utilized. But I would say that's a very separate discussion. That's not linked to the carbon tax. That is a revenue stream that supports municipal transit and infrastructure.
Okay. Do you have any regrets in your time in provincial politics? You endorsed putting a price on carbon and having a carbon tax.
Mm-hmm.
Do you regret that decision to do that in your climate change plan when you were Ontario PC leader?
When I was Ontario PC leader, there was a federal carbon tax which was mandatory, and I said at the time that if we are mandated to have a provincial carbon tax, first of all, I disliked Kathleen Wynne's cap-and-trade system where we'd send billions to California, and I said we would dismantle that, and whatever is the federal carbon tax, we would return in the largest tax cut in Ontario history. Right now we have 10 provinces that have ambitious environmental plans, and it's why I came out yesterday and said, given the fact we already have 10 ambitious provincial plans, why would we increase it at this point and put additional pressure on the system? I haven't changed in the fact that I care passionately about the environment, but I want to see something tangible. And let me give you an example. Right now in Brampton, we are going to become the first big city in Canada. We're in a competition actually with Ottawa to have the first fully electrified municipal transit fleet. Well, we'll have no emissions. I do believe it's important, whether it's at a city level, a provincial level, or a national level, to have credible environmental plans to show that we're going to protect the air, the land, the water that we enjoy for future generations. But I don't see how increasing the carbon tax during a moment of economic uncertainty helps with that. It may even diminish our ability to invest in environmental programs.
Okay. So you're calling for this delay in the carbon tax. In the past, the last time I had a chance to speak with you, you were encouraging other municipalities to put some money in to help the litigants fighting Bill 21 in Quebec.
Mm-hmm. And we've had a great response to that, by the way.
Well, tell me a little bit about that.
So we've had about 40 cities across the country who have said that they share our sentiments that Bill 21 is an attack on the Canadian Charter. It is it's discrimination. The notion that you can't wear a kippah, a cross, a hijab, a turban, and be a judge, a crown prosecutor, a nurse, a police officer is offensive. Regardless of your faith, everyone deserves equal opportunity in Canada. And the fact that so many cities from coast to coast have stepped up and said, we want to help make sure that we have the legal resources to challenge this all the way to the Supreme Court, has been a beautiful thing to watch. It's been a beautiful response to watch, to see so much support.
Okay. Bill 21, carbon tax, it's all fueling speculation that you want to run for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Do you want to run for the Conservative Party leadership?
So, I'm certainly considering it. I've had a lot of folks around the country reach out to me encouraging me to give this a hard look. And the rules just came out late last night, and so I'm certainly going to look at those rules and make a decision in the very near future. But I certainly don't have a decision to share with you today, right now on the air. But it is something that I'm seriously considering.
Something that you're seriously considering. What do you think you have to contribute to the debate if you're in the leadership race?
Well, there's, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's certainly issues that I care passionately about that are in the federal arena that I would like a greater emphasis put on. You just mentioned Bill 21. I'd love to see a federal Conservative Party or any party in Ottawa stand up for religious freedom. It's a foundational value of our country. One issue that I've been campaigning on, lobbying the federal government over the last 3 years, is some of the Titanic-sized loopholes we have in our criminal justice system. I started a petition on bail reform. I had an incident in my community where someone was let out on bail not once, not twice, but 5 times. The police did their work. They got the person, arrested the person that was responsible for crimes in our community, but they got let out. And in the end, murdered his intimate partner. We can't have gaps in our justice system that waste the time and resources of our law enforcement and allow a justice system that doesn't balance the rights of the criminals and the victims. I saw in my own community how ill prepared our country was heading into this pandemic. Most countries had about 60% of their hospital beds in use. We went into this pandemic with 91% of our hospital beds in use, with no capacity for domestic production, whether it's PPE or vaccines.
Okay, so what? I'm sorry to interrupt. What could the federal government do about that?
At no point in Canadian history have we spent as much, and we're doing all these partnerships with provincial governments, investing in every program, left, right, and center, and yet we haven't improved hospital capacity in this country. One of the reasons that we were on this cycle of lockdowns, endless lockdowns, was because governments would announce, our hospital capacity is threatened. Our hospital capacity was threatened before this pandemic even started. In my own community, our hospital was at 120% capacity before the first case of COVID came into Canada. And so, I struggle with the fact that we're spending records amount in Ottawa, but I don't see, any investment in the areas that would make us better prepared to deal with adversity of a pandemic like this.
Okay. Patrick Brown, always good to have you on the show, sir. Thank you. All the best. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye. That's the Mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown. Hasn't made up his mind, but seriously considering it. A run for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. Okay. 11:17. When we come back, a focus on Ottawa City Hall with Pat Aguccione, the managing editor of your Community Voice newspapers. This is City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly, but it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food. So nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm. So supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have from combos and to small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Was it? We were hoping to interview Mayor Grant of Cornwall. Unfortunately, the mayor has been pulled into an urgent meeting and is now unavailable to come on. But Pat Aguccione will always make time for us. Pat Aguccione is the managing editor of the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. And welcome back.
Good morning.
Well, Pat, there's a lot happening in city affairs. So let's talk about and get your take on what you think about all the instability with the Ottawa Police Services Board now that 3 more members have resigned. What do you think about all of this?
You know, personally, I was surprised when they made the move with the council appointees that they didn't make the province didn't make the same decision right away to just sort of start with a clean slate. So, you know, the Robert Sweda issue aside, I think. I'm not all that surprised that this is happening. I thought they would have done this around the same time the city made their move.
That there should have been a clean slate anyway?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the public had obviously lost confidence in the police and this police services board. So I thought they should have or would have made that move weeks ago.
Okay, so. What does this mean then for kind of reconstituting an Ottawa Police Services Board? We need a functioning Ottawa Police Services Board to you know.
Well, my understanding is they have an in-camera meeting, I think tomorrow. I'm not quite sure about the date, and I'm sure they'll address the the vacancies at that point. But I'm not 100% sure of that, but hey, it's under good leadership now. I think anyone would argue that it's not. They put the right person in place there with lots of experience, and obviously with the ear of the mayor. So I think in hindsight that was a good move. And I think I haven't seen a lot of opposition to that move to put Eli Al-Shantiri back in there with his experience.
Well, the most vocal opposition I heard to that move was from the ousted chair of the Police Services Board, Diane Deans, who you remember said some pretty wild things that this was, putting Al-Shantiri in there was like taking policing back to the 1950s, and it was giving a blank check to the police service. And when I asked that to Councillor Al-Shantiri, he said, well, that's funny because I was accused by the Police Association, i.e., Matt Scoff and the Police Association, of trying to nickel and dime the police. So
right, yeah. I don't think you've seen a lot of public opposition to it, and I think actually sort of taken I think he's guided the police quite well, or guided the Police Services Board quite well since he was put in there only a couple of weeks ago. So I don't hear a lot of chatter online, except for the usual complainers. But yeah.
The usual complainers, the usual suspects. Okay.
Right.
So really interesting story on the front page of the newspaper this morning by the Post Media City Hall correspondent, John Willing. And we can see how this is kind of going to go now. LRT opened under pressure, RTG says, and this is according to an affidavit from the CEO of Rideau Transit Group, who said, look, if there were problems, basically, this is what it comes down. If there were problems with the opening of phase 1 of light rail, it's not our fault. It's because of the politicians. They put political pressure into having it open before it was ready to open, or before it was fully tested, or these kinds of things. What do you think about that?
Well, again, I don't think anybody should be surprised with that. I think everybody that has spent any time in City Hall has come to the same conclusion that this thing, even though it was already a year late at that point, that it was rushed into service, and there was quite possibly some political pressure to do that. Another reporter, Joanne Chianello, wrote fairly recently about an email that she unearthed through access information that has the former GM John Manconi saying almost just that. That it wasn't ready. So I don't think anybody should be surprised that RTG has come out and said this in the context of the court action.
Yeah,
and I think it
that's going to be a major narrative to follow, though, during the public inquiry, right?
For sure, and these people will be put on the stand under oath to say this, to put light to these accusations and rumors and whatnot. So yeah. So
when I put it to the mayor, and I have put it to the mayor directly, did you rush this into service for political reasons because you were under pressure because so many people were running? Where's my light rail? Where's my light rail? All we've talked about is light rail, light rail, light rail. And his comeback line is, of course we didn't rush it. It was a year behind schedule.
Yeah, and he also said about they brought a big key to it, but at the time, and we were all at that press conference. It's not that I don't think anybody thought that RTG wouldn't show up for that press conference with the handing over the ceremonial key. But at that same press conference, John Manconi surprised a lot of reporters in the room to say that there was 12 trains on the track, and everyone just sort of went wide-eyed and their jaws dropped to the floor. That it was supposed to be 15. And so there was some messaging around that. So really, I don't think anybody should be surprised that it's coming to light today that this was rushed into service because you just have to look back at all the film footage of people walking from Tunney's Pasture to downtown to know that it wasn't ready.
Okay. What are you working on these days for the newspapers? What's a big focus for the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers these days?
Really just, a lot of very local issues. These type of things with, council stuff doesn't play well, in our small community newspapers. We're very local, very local coverage. But, I've talked a lot about with you about how, what an institution our reporter John Curry is in Pittsfield. And unfortunately, he passed away very recently. He had a quick illness and passed away. And the unbelievable community outpouring of affection for him and the memories of people saying, I remember when he took my picture when I was 5 years old, and now they're taking a picture of my 5-year-old. So it just tells you what community newspapers are all about. It's about, the bake sales and the fundraisers and the kids' basketball games and skating in the outdoor rinks. So that's what our focus always is, and will continue to be.
Okay, great to hear from you. Thanks for jumping on. Yeah, bye-bye. Pat Aguccione, City Hall insider here on the Rob Snow Show. He's with the Ottawa Community Voice newspapers. Coming up right after the 11:30 news, we'll turn our attention to world affairs and the war in Ukraine with Professor Elliot Tepper and the world. This is City News.
Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Thursday, March 3rd. Good morning. I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy, -12, and in Smiths Falls, -11. Here's what's making news this hour. The Trudeau government is stepping up its response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine by announcing new economic measures against Russia, more weapons for Ukraine, and fast-tracked immigration for Ukrainians looking to flee. Any company in Russia or Belarus looking to export products to Canada will now be facing 35% tariffs on all goods. Canada will be sending up to 4,500 rocket launchers and up to 7,500 hand grenades to Ukraine as well. And Canada is creating new immigration streams for Ukrainians looking to flee the violence. All they have to do is fill in an application and submit information for background checks. A 19-vehicle collision that clogged up the 417 eastbound earlier at Innes Road has been cleared. 5 people were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The number of people in hospital with COVID-19 in the province has dropped to 834. 45% were admitted with the virus. The other 55% tested positive once they were in. And of the 267 needing intensive care, 80% were admitted for COVID-19, while the other 20% were in the ICU for other conditions, then tested positive. And gas prices are going up again tonight, tomorrow night, and for the foreseeable future, as the price for oil went up briefly to $1.14 a barrel this morning. Gas price expert Dan McTagg told City News this morning to expect $1.75 per liter by the end of the weekend. City News time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's time for The World with Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow, Norman Paterson School, International Affairs at Carleton University. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Rob.
What is your impression of the advance of the Russian military into Ukraine thus far?
It's Mike Tyson, the champion boxer, said everybody has a plan until you're punched in the nose. So we don't really know Putin's master plan, but if the intention was to have a quick blitzkrieg, eliminate the government, put in a puppet government, call off the Ukrainian army under the new government, that clearly has failed. The unfortunate result of that is highly likely to be a greatly increased level of violence in Ukraine. The Russians know how to put down civilian populations. They did it in Chechnya. They've, with great brutality, done so elsewhere, including Syria. So I'm afraid what we see right now is a lot of new arms going in, but will they even get there, and will they be there in time?
Okay. Did Mr. Putin underestimate or miscalculate the resistance that his forces would face?
Very likely. The armed forces that he met in 2014 in Crimea have been greatly enhanced, in part with Canadian training. Also, other countries have been, including the US CIA, have been training that military. I think Ukraine sent some troops into the Afghan struggle, so they learned new tactics and they became battle hardened. So yes, apparently he did underestimate that, but we have to emphasize that the Ukrainians are still fighting alone. There's unity now from the outside, and we can talk further about the shockingly quick response to deal with Russia in terms of sanctions, but the decision was made a long time ago. Let's do a little thought game.
Sure.
If 6 months ago, when none of this was visible, if the United States had made the policy choice to do what we have done, say in Latvia, what NATO has done in terms of the Baltic states with Operation Reassurance, to have a tripwire force spread out all across Ukraine, then perhaps the Russians would not have come in. These are meant to be not a combat force in large numbers, but a tripwire, so that they are a deterrent force.
So the world has moved quick, but late, you would say. Too late, really.
And probably futile. Ultimately, as the Pentagon has just said, the Ukrainian forces are facing slow-scale annihilation. If there's not going to be anybody there to help Ukraine face the juggernaut, and if the tactics go up in terms of the level of brutality, then the Ukrainians who are fighting alone, there will be no-fly zone. That's clear. There's not going to be any. The Russians have total control of the air. There's not going to be any boots on the ground other than the Ukrainian grandmothers and students and volunteers to oppose them along with the Ukrainian forces. Then we are going to watch, unfortunately, a disaster in the making.
What do you think of this decision to not have a no-fly zone?
I think it was inevitable. The decision has been made quite some time ago. A policy choice, I wouldn't call it, I'd put it differently. A policy choice was made to not directly confront Russia. Now, nobody's ever asked why that policy choice was made. We can speculate on it. It is a nuclear armed force. You don't want to trigger Russia into feeling they're isolated, etc. But nobody's actually questioned that policy choice. But the policy choice was made a long time ago. And now we have a situation facing us where there's, I think the phrase is coming out from others now saying, unity from the outside, but nothing on the inside.
What is your opinion on the series of sanctions imposed by Western nations in this coordinated fashion?
It is a remarkable feat to put together the level of international sanctions that have happened in such a short time. We should give credit to Mr. Biden, but also to other leaders, including our own, to put together such an effective array of sanctions, really making Russia a pariah state within 8 days. And that is a very significant accomplishment. We'll have to see where it goes. Will these be effective in creating pressures on Mr. Putin and the people around him to the degree that perhaps the people around him, starting with the oligarchs, but also the military, do you think the military enjoys all of this nuclear talk? Maybe they do. But maybe they're saying, hey, remember, every time you say that, you're putting a target on us. So we'll have to see. That's a black box, the Russian military. But are there sufficient forces now going to be put around Mr. Putin to either change his behavior, highly unlikely, or to have him removed? Is it time for the old guy to go? He squeezed the oligarchs for $1 billion pleasure palace and a number of other things. Mm-hmm. I think it's a race. It's a race right now between how much Putin can accomplish and achieve in terms of his goals, both at home. He has triggered a massive return of civil society reaction against him at home. But it's a race between will he succeed enough in Ukraine before we lose our patience as a world with the kind of cost that it's imposing on us.
On us.
So we're
like $1.75 a liter for gasoline, like $1.75 a liter for gasoline here.
Exactly so.
Yeah, but
also inflation. Also, they've got the inflation rates going up. We have Mr. Biden and a lot of other elected leaders are going to be facing their constituents who care perhaps a whole lot more about bread and butter issues facing them than they do about the fate of Ukraine.
Yeah,
so
well, domestic
we're
issues.
Really in a race right now.
Yeah. It's been said domestic issues decide elections, not foreign affairs, right?
Correct.
So, but this inside of Russia, to put yourself in the shoes of a Russian right now, your currency has collapsed. There are pictures on social media this morning that people lined up at banks. There's a run on the banks. They have these banking restrictions about wiring money. Interest rates double overnight. Stock market crashes. I have to wonder if there will be great internal turmoil in that country because of this. What's your thought on it?
Also, the shipping containers that are saying we're not going to ship anything into Russia. The Russian economy, they can't finance their sovereign debt. It's highly likely that there will be a recession there. People will find that their savings are useless. Also, Mr. Putin is finding that he can't get that cash reserve that he had, foreign exchange reserve, to weather any sanctions. Those are being frozen out. It's kind of a race between will he succeed successfully in putting down things internally, deceiving his own population about what's going on, succeeding quickly enough in Ukraine to achieve his goals, or if he slowed down sufficiently, will the rest of the world, but also particularly the people at home, finally say we've had enough? And there's been pushback. We should not remember. We shouldn't say, the Russians like a strong man and they support him. He's in serious trouble at home. He was in serious trouble at home. One explanation of why he's doing this is his popularity went way up after 2014 in Crimea. So maybe he thought he'd give it another try at raising his popularity. So we'll have to. This is a fine balancing act, but I think also the cultural side of it, the cutting off of the sports participation by Russians, this is all kind of going to come as a great shock. We'll have to see if that shock settles in to the point where people will now reject Putin in a way that can, let's say, either change his behavior or remove him.
Okay. I mean, in my lifetime, being a child of the 80s, I was raised in the kind of the disarmament age, right? I've never seen such loose talk about the use of nuclear weapons before. This is entirely new. What is your impression of this, Professor?
Well, thank you, because as you do know me quite well, I have a special interest in the fact that we now have the capacity to wipe ourselves out as a species. And the instant use of the nuclear specter by Mr. Putin, I find very unsettling indeed. There's a lot. There's a lot of dimensions to this. Sorry.
Why don't we take a little break here, Professor? Yeah. We'll take a little break and we'll pick it up on the other side. You can have a glass of water, collect yourself, and we'll be right back. It's The World with Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow at Norman Paterson School, International Affairs. And we'll be right back with the second half here on City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian, so all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches, we focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked, I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
Ottawa Icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And we're back with Professor Elliot Tepper from Carleton University for The World. All good to go, Professor?
Yes.
Good.
It's
Thank you.
About nukes that just gets to me.
Okay. Yeah. So on the tough talk from Putin about threatening to use nuclear weapons, please continue.
Yes. One of the things that didn't attract enough notice is that Belarus has become much more of even more than it was a Russian satrapy. It's become basically an extension of Russia now, and they have just changed their policy, which was in, I think, their constitution, to permit the stationing of nuclear weapons on their territory. And meanwhile, of course, we have the brandishing of nuclear weapons threats by Mr. Putin. There's also about 40% or so, I've read, of the domestic electrical power inside Ukraine is generated by nuclear power. What's going to happen if some random missile, I hate to raise this specter, Rob, but you have asked it. The nuclear side of all this is very concerning, and also is the lesson that Mr. Putin has learned from this. His takeaway is that he will always get his way if he threatens nuclear retaliation. Is this going to make a bully into a mega bully? So I think there's a lot of concern here over the nuclear issue. Also, the Russians initially came in through Chernobyl. Chernobyl is on Ukrainian territory. It's still radioactive. The Russians took command of that, but they're also using that now as a passageway toward Kiev, so Kiev might be approached from that former nuclear site as well as from Belarus. So there's a lot of nuclear dimensions to this, and I am disturbed to see our world once again having the idea in 2022 that you can have a land war in Europe, but also the nuclear threat is back with us.
Okay. The Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, is of Ukrainian descent. She's been front and center through all of this. Another news conference today, and our government keeps ratcheting up the response. And today, it's more lethal military hardware going to Ukraine, of rocket launchers, hand grenades in the thousands. Now, what have you thought of Chrystia Freeland's job performance?
I think it's as if destiny had arrived. She has worked all of her life for this moment, in a sense. Her whole background is leading up to this. Remember, she was a journalist before she became a politician, and she was covering Russia. She knows not only Ukraine and has an interest in it because of her family background, but she knows the situation very well indeed. So that we have a leader globally in our Deputy Prime Minister and our Finance Minister. She, in turn, is playing a very active role in those sanctions that we were talking about. And we possibly could talk even more about those sanctions in that, well, we can come to that in another question. I think a new Europe has been created, and the leadership of Canada, and particularly her leadership, has been a big factor in that.
Yeah, well, she did write a book called Plutocrats.
Yes.
Right. So,
yes.
Which focuses, it's called The Rise of the New Global Super Rich and the Fall of Everyone Else. And this is one of her core beliefs. It kind of puts her offside with some of us who are more fiscally conservative, because it would seem that one of her arguments is the pie is already big enough and we don't have to grow the pie, and it's about how we distribute the pie. But that's a conversation for another day. But she has written extensively about the oligarchs, so she knows all about this.
Precisely. That's my point. She is, in a sense, her entire career is shaped for this moment, the reorganization of Europe and dealing with a Russia that she knows so well, and a Ukraine that she knows well and cares about.
Okay. Should we be kicking ambassadors out of the country? It's been argued, for example, Peter MacKay argued in the National Post in recent days, kick them out, kick them all out, is what he said. What do you think about this idea? Let's kick the ambassador out, recall our ambassador.
Well, let's go back to our previous conversation about the role of Canada and in particular our Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. I think it's an excellent idea, and it should be done as we have been doing all along, in concert with allies.
Okay.
If this was done throughout the G7, for example, that would really be startling, and much of the G20. If this is done collectively, it would have a whole lot more impact than if we do it on our own. But the point of kicking out an ambassador is it further reinforces the idea that this is unacceptable behavior, and that now, because of Mr. Putin's decision, Russia is a pariah state. It's another form of isolation of the current Russian regime.
Okay, so you talked about the reshaping of Europe because of this crisis. You have Ukraine has applied for membership in the EU. What do you make of that? What could that mean?
Well, pointedly in terms of that, we should keep in mind how, among other things, we got into our current situation is that Ukraine had a prime minister, a leader, that said, I think we really want to get away from having been overshadowed by the Russian bear. We are a European country, and we want to emphasize that by joining the EU, or at least exploring that. And he made moves in that direction. At that point, Russia apparently leaned on him, and he said, no, I changed my mind. I am not going to. Ukraine will not become part of the EU. And that has triggered much of what we've seen, because that led to People's Power, the Orange Revolution. They removed a leader who said, no, we are not going to go into the EU. We are not going to be a European country. And they replaced him with another leader who didn't go far enough. And then Mr. Zelensky came in with great popular support. So twice, actually, the people of Ukraine have kicked out a leader who said, we don't want to be part of the EU. The EU, in turn, has taken an unusual step here. It's not an easy thing to get into the EU. There's lots and lots of rules and regulations, but apparently they are fast-tracking if you've been following this in the media, the appearance of Mr. Zelensky by video, and the EU response was really one of the most heartening things we've seen. But the main point here is this is largely a dispute by Russia saying, no, you will always be little Russia. You don't really exist as a real country. You're a phantom country. You're going to be under our sphere of influence. And the Ukrainians saying, no, we want to be part of Europe. And much of Europe right now is saying, yes, we recognize you as part of Europe. And the most startling factor of the sanctions and all the other things we're talking about is the reinvigoration of Europe as a concept and the reinvigoration of NATO as a concept. Mr. Biden deserves a lot of credit on this aspect of it. The change of behavior by Sweden and Finland suddenly saying, maybe joining NATO is a good idea. The idea that Switzerland would join in on the sanctions, the financial sanctions. So I think one of the takeaways is we do have a newly reinvigorated concept of Europe and NATO as a result of what we're seeing.
Well, is there a country in Europe that has changed more dramatically in the last 8 days than Germany? What do you think? We only have about 2 minutes left. Okay. To me, that's extraordinary what's happened there.
Yes, it is extraordinary. They've reversed their historic positions of being, we're economic, we're not political, and we all have to be understanding about Russia's concerns. The turnaround there in terms of providing hard military power to Ukraine under this new circumstance is a symbol, I think, of the transformation that Mr. Putin has wrought through his reckless and criminal behavior. The criminal court is now being invoked, his criminal behavior in regard to his invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah. Ostpolitik is over in Germany.
Yes, and so is Nord Stream 2, by the way. The country's declared bankruptcy and fired all of its employees.
Okay. Wow, Professor, what a week, right? What a week.
What a time we're living through, Rob.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your insight, your analysis. It's so greatly appreciated on a weekly basis, Professor.
Always glad to chat with you.
Stay well. All the best. Yep. That is Professor Elliot Tepper, Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University. So my time is winding down here. Make way for our noon newscast. The Prime Minister is having a news conference right now. We're monitoring that. Coming up on the Sam LaPrade Show, right after the noon news, it's Fraud Prevention Month. Seniors are a frequent target for financial scams. So Laura Tamblin-Watts will be one of Sam's guests, the president and CEO of CanAge, and as well, e-scooters back in the news. Not popular with advocates for people with mobility issues, disability advocates like David Lepofsky, who I've had on my show. The man is brilliant, and he'll be one of Sam's guests as well to talk about the continuation of the e-scooter program. So all of that right after the noon news, our complete news update coming at you. I'm back tomorrow, right after the 9 o'clock news, do the Friday free-for-all tomorrow as well, here on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Tune in weekdays starting at 9 on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com.